and it's a good question. In the late 1950s, I'm going to start with this. United States, on October 4th, 1957, an auto-sized moon was orbited by the Soviets. I was, at this time, 14 years old, I think. And it said, will the new satellite return here? We could hear it beep, beep, beep. We could see it in the sky. It was so low. You know, it didn't stay up there as long as you might think. It crashed eventually. But Vanguard, we put up a 6.4-inch diameter, 3 1/4 pound satellite. Okay? And Explorer, which is 6 feet 8 inches long, weighed 31 pounds. Oh, we did that too. The Soviets put up something that weighed 2,925 pounds, 11 feet tall and 8 inches. That's what happened to us in 1957. Shocked. Everyone was shocked. Well, they shouldn't have been. I'm going to show you why. But this did. It sent terror through many civilian lives. What is Russia up to? How can they do this? How come we're not first? What happened? Before I knew it, because I'd been given an IQ test, and some of the others had been on the new Wechsler 2 and all that kind of thing. I think, yeah, it was Wechsler 2, I think. We found ourselves kind of targeted. We were the whiz kids. We were the ones with 150, 160 IQ or higher. And we were given a lot of attention. We were given opportunities for the international science fairs and meet others like us. And especially CIA was interested. OSS, CIA, came to CIA. A lot of people don't know that Dr. Alton Ochsner's, one of his best friends was Wild Bill Donovan of the OSS, who brought in the CIA. These people are all so close together. And when they're going to work on an internationally important project, I mean, Ochsner knew so much, and people don't understand that unless you go look at the connections. All these years, Ochsner was not mentioned as involved in the Kennedy assassination, except a couple little articles that Jim Garrison had tried to indict him. And we have in Surgeon of the South, we have Ochsner stating he was afraid. Surgeon of the South is actually the official biography of Alton Ochsner, where he says he was afraid that Garrison was going to arrest him, along with the people at a coffee company. How about that? But there were forces against Garrison, including Carlos Marcello. If you're going to live in the same town with Marcello, you better get along with him. There are things that Garrison could not do, places Garrison could not go. But we're talking about the space race. I've been asked many times, how come you knew any Russian, you could speak Russian? Because these frantic people gave us opportunities to learn Russian. We took courses. You know, you might read to what? We're going to be a Russian spy? In my case, I was a speed reader, 2,500 words a minute, and they wanted me to speed read in Russian. They wanted me to look at the cancer articles that had been published in Russian. So I was able to read Russian a heck of a lot better than I could speak it. And Lee, when we first met him, he said, well, you sort of know Russian, because my accent was terrible. It still is. And I've forgotten, because of 3 concussions I've received in so-called accidents, I no longer can speak all the languages I could with the French and Italian and Russian and so on. But one of the things that really struck me was how much attention we got. I can't tell you how many IQ tests they gave us, because we were scattered around. You've got Robert Strong and others. I mentioned him because we were at the International Science Fair together, across from each other, and the military officers there had actually, I had written a poem. Oh, precious dear fair lady, to thee do we give our love, for you are the flag of the United States, streaming on high above. So that was it was a poem, and we had, McKinley Cantor had written was writing the biography. Can anyone in the audience here know some of the military enemies of John F. Kennedy? General. All right.
Nay.
There you go. It's LeMay, Curtis LeMay. His biography was being written by McKinley Cantor, and you will see in my newspaper, high school newspaper articles. McKinley Cantor came to our high school. He and I became friends because they kind of showed me off to him. Said, she writes poetry, and look at this nice poem, you know, and she wants to be a writer. And so I walked around, and McKinley Cantor, he wrote Andersonville. He wrote the biography of Curtis LeMay. Why is this important? He sent my poem to Curtis LeMay. And when I was at the International Science Fair, and these military officers came out, oh yeah, they said, we remember your poem. Nice patriotic girl. Unfortunately, the more patriotic you are in a situation, it gave me a little bit of attention that I wish I had never had. And it was the beginning of being able to get all kinds of equipment and everything else from that point. Because you had all these retired military officers who look it up in Sarasota, Florida. There they are. And where's my house? We're about 15 blocks from Sarasota's city line, you know? I'm going to Manatee High School. Okay, so here I am, and I'm now part, it said, you know, you are the hope of the future, all of you kids. You're whiz kids, they called us whiz kids. And Robert, for example, Robert Strom ended up with IBM, one of the great brains behind IBM and all that they have accomplished. I'm going to go now and tell you the condition. I've got these various, when I give you information, I back it up. I've got the documents. I was saving these from the time that they were interested in me. So I started cutting them out, you know. Not say they, I don't know who they were. I kept getting, I was being sent chemicals from Walter Reed Army Medical Center after, we had a Canute Mickelson, who I was introduced to, came to our school and became a friend of mine. Who was he? He had been a spy against Hitler, and his own family disowned him, thinking that he was one of those, associated with Hitler. He was a specialist in radiation and genetic alterations. It was going to it's right in my high school newspaper. He was going on to a seminar on radiobiology, okay? And when you see in my book, me and Lee, you will see when I'm at Roswell Park Institute, they asked me, they actually put me on there's my picture with 5 other people that were in the program. And there were more in the program, but we were the top ones, so they would put us together. And there you'll see it, they asked me what I'm studying, and it says radiobiology. Now, when we talk about Dr. Barry's monkey, we talk about my book, and what we were doing, it is loaded with information about radiobiology. I can trace for you right from Mickelson on the work that I was, given more. When I couldn't get the doctors locally who had been trained, get this, they were trained at Oak Ridge. I had 2 doctors working with me, trained at Oak Ridge, and it says in preclinical, do you know what preclinical means? In preclinical.
Before you have a disease?
No, it means you're working with test tubes.
Oh.
You're growing stuff, okay. Preclinical biology. So I was learning from them. They had just taken these courses, and you could see on the record, it's in my book, that along with these doctors from Bradenton, Florida, you could see that Bradenton, little town right next to, at that time little, next to Sarasota, you can see Dr. Brown from the CIA also taking these courses. And I don't know how many more. By the way, since I put this up in my book and everything and loaded it, these have disappeared from the internet. No, of course. But it's too late because it got everywhere. So we're talking about, what I'm saying here, on where did that go? October 1957. 57. What do we have going on here? Oh, we've got to get ahead, we've got to go get ahead. Meanwhile, I'll give you a little anecdote. So I'm at the high school, and they say, we got to give you another test. And then that's when I scored highest in the state of Florida. I'm sorry, I apologize for anybody who doesn't believe it. All right, I don't care. But the point is, it gets awfully boring. What they did was wrong, so they tested me again. And then I cheated. I went to Manatee Medical Library, and there was a new psychiatrist there that they had. And he let me look at the latest IQ test. I said, I just took this one. I said, I missed a question near the end. I said apocalypse instead of apocrypha. And he said, well, the answer was apocrypha. And a couple other answers that were at the end that get you up to a genius IQ of 200, which I've never had. Okay. Einstein. So the next time they threw that test at me again, like, is it going to change? Has it dwindled? Has it grown? And I scored a 200. Wow, this is Einstein. And I said, look, I didn't say creeps, but I felt like it. Please quit testing us. And these tests aren't that good. I get lost. I had to have a map for my own high school because I got lost all the time. You guys are testing intelligence, but guess what? I'm an absolutely lobotomized idiot when it comes to trying to figure out where I am. In this own hotel room. I've been here all these days. I had to go to the bathroom so bad, and I couldn't remember which direction was the bathroom in my own room. I have something missing in my head, and yet I'm supposed to be very smart, okay? But practically speaking, if I were back in the Stone Ages, I'd be dead. So much for high IQ, okay? So there are so many limitations. So I did that. I was trying to teach them. They stopped giving me the IQ tests after that, because I said, I cheated. You think I had an IQ of 200? I just looked at answer something. You think I'm, and who knows how many others had access to do something like that too, so they could get into college with a higher, because they were doing so much emphasis, but they were trying to figure out who was smart, because the space race, they wanted to get the smart kids together. And you can't blame them. You really can't. If you think about Operation Paperclip, it brought everybody over. And by the way, as these scientists died, all of a sudden, our abilities in science, now we're down to all kinds of things happening in Europe. Where are our new scientific developments of this, that, and the other? We're back to everybody else. And once you get the geniuses that were rescued out of Germany, they're dead now. I want to see fantastic things happening in our country, really fantastic, like we had back then. I guess we have to get some more people that are persecuted to come over here and revitalize, because our education system will not produce these kind of people.
Oh, that's true.
They're not. Okay, so we have on February 1st, 1958, now I'm cutting these things out because I'm part of this. They're giving me all kinds of training, all these things are happening. And I wasn't the only one. At our school, we had what's called a Science Research Seminar. We don't have that at school today. I had time every single day. I had an hour plus most of my lunchtime. We could eat a lunch where I could do research in my own high school. But my research got so dangerous. They installed black lights to kill germs. They got scared of what I was doing. And then they moved me into the stadium, got me out of the school altogether. Because what I was doing, when they saw these mice with these huge, their lungs were spreading out in their abdomen, all these tumors, and they smelled, their urine stank in this funny way and so on, they got terrified. On top of that, one student let them loose. And they were running all over the floor in the biology lab rooms with and the girls were screaming, and all that. We're picking them up by the tail and pinning them back. And somebody saying, they got loose. And of course, my enemies posted many years later, how did she know which were which after they got loose? Guess what? We got a newspaper article. I had dyed in pink, yellow, blue, and then purple and white. So they were, even though they were all mixed up, we could soon put them all back to where they belong. Because I'm not going to, what if one of my high school friends pick up a mouse and put it in another one? They were all died. Okay, and they'd soon all be dead. So, died and dead. So I'm trying to say that I was very careful with what I was doing, but people became frightened after they got loose. So they put me under the stadium. Part of it was a dirt floor where the mice were kept. And they kept spraying, they were spraying Clorox, they had people come in and bring in new sawdust all the time, and they went and put the sawdust in the incinerator. They were scared of what I was doing. So that's the situation at the time. Then when the doctors came to examine what I was doing there, we had Dr. Harold Deal, Vice President of the American Cancer Society. Remember, I crashed their seminar because even the doctors I was working with trained at Oak Ridge, as I said, in preclinical studies. When I was doing this with test tubes, when I got to working with real cancers with these mice, with germ-free mice, I got from Dr. Rainier. And people said, how did you get your stuff from Dr. Rainier? Well, I was born in South Bend, Indiana, and my parents were friends with a lot of people at Notre Dame, including professors and so on, because that's South Bend is Notre Dame. Rainier came from Notre Dame. He saw what I was doing. He was in St. Petersburg, Florida. We have records that I stopped in St. Petersburg, Florida. We have records that I did an art exhibition for Research Incorporated that Rainier ran to give money to what was Rainier doing? Breeding germ-free mice. I had access to germ-free mice, and I'm 15. Okay? So I had a head start on some of this stuff. And I had access, when they saw what I was doing, we came to the high school. It was Dr. Robert Robinson, Nobel Prize winner in chemistry. Dr. Harold Urey, Nobel Prize winner in chemistry. Oh, why were they so interested? Because I went to International Fair not with my research, what I was doing on the mice, which I had with me at that time, but because I invented a new way to get magnesium out of seawater. It was more efficient. And in fact, I won't name the company, but they said, we'll give you $150 instead of encyclopedia. Oh God, they gave me World Book Encyclopedia.
Oh my gosh.
Or we'll just take it and just adapt it a little, because we're not gonna let you have the patent on this. We're here to steal, your stuff. They didn't mind if they said that to me because I was a minor and I didn't have adult rights and I could be lying. So they honestly just told me what they were going to do, this big company. So there I was, unable to protect what had happened. And I didn't want any money. I was just glad it would help our country because at that time we needed more magnesium faster for these satellites you're talking about. So I talk about space race and getting this magnesium into the space, into these capsules and everything like that. So I've got a little bit of a investment in that to tell you about that now. So here's the situation. I'm a real girl too, so I had boyfriends, I wanted to have a normal life, but it became almost impossible. So they come to the school with not only these two Nobel Prize winners. By the way, in my school newspaper it says, Nobel Prize winners, come to see my, to visit Judith, Judy. So I've got all the records on that. Along with them is Dr. Harold Deal, the Vice President of the American Cancer Society. His best friend, Dr. Alton Ochsner. Dr. Deal, and Dr. Ochsner, and Dr. Moore, George Moore, the three of them would crusade. They would go from place to place, wherever. They had lawsuits where people were dying from cancer, lung cancer, from smoking, and they were defending these smokers. They need compensation. You've got to, they were crusading. They finally got their way to get warnings on cigarette packets, but they were working together, these three doctors, and it was about, what did I give cancer to these mice? Lung cancer? They're talking about lung cancer. I gave lung cancer to these mice using cigarette products. Can you imagine how interested they were in me because of that? It's not illogical that all the special attention that got, because they verified that I gave lung cancer to these germ-free mice, pumping in this mixture. They had nothing else to breathe in. In 7 days, they had lung cancer. In 14 days, it was killing them. Weanling mice, germ-free, and it had never been done before in the most expensive labs. You know what they did? Don't you tell a word to anybody about this. And they shut it down. It was so dangerous because if you think you can give lung cancer just by changing genetic material, Obviously, we know now it was a virus, and they had to find out what that virus was. These mice carried that did that. I was sent, and it's all in the papers and everything. All of a sudden, all over, they got attention. So I was in all the newspapers about 99 mice. Well, that started out with 99 mice, but guess what? We had a boy, and we had a lot more mice. All the time, I had plenty of mice because they had babies. Lots of babies. I was breeding them alongside. But then I got rid of them all for the germ-free. So we could sterilize everything. Why am I talking about all this? Are you bored? If you're bored, raise your hand.
No,
Go on.
go on.
It was a space race. We're talking about the interest that they had in people like me. And I say there were others that they were interested in. As a girl, I had a little more freedom. I mean, there really was a prejudice against girls. For example, when I won the top physics and chemistry award at Florida, it's a girl wins. And they would not give me one of the great prizes was to spend a week on an aircraft carrier because I was female. So they wouldn't let me get on there. I wanted to do that so much. I want to see those baby boys.
You wanted that uniform.
Those boys in that uniform. And by the way, Lee Oswald, he had to walk with a military style that would make your heart stop. It was just, you could see, you could almost visualize the uniform he was wearing. You could tell he was a Marine, even when he was in civics, okay? He just held that kind of composure and dignity. And you don't know any of that because you never knew him. All you get is pictures of the ugliest they could find, and they even deformed him, blow him up and you see they put a smirk on his face when he was frowning. The only man in history who could smile and frown at the same time. Yeah. So we're going along here, and tell me when I'm running out of time. So by February 1st, 1958, we get something up there. Oh my gosh, what do we have? We have Explorer. Okay, it's 80 inches long, 6 inches in diameter, it weighs 18 pounds. We're really going to town, aren't we? It's a serious space race, and in fact, we are very far behind. But we're going to get a second moon up there. Okay, and that one's going to be a little bit heavier. Okay, we're near. Now, there is a very big problem. We're talking about space race. I want to tell you what's happening on the ground. Now tell me if we had this situation today, what you might do. We're close to MacDill Air Force Base there at St. Petersburg. We're living right across the bridge. On a Saturday, May 3rd, 58. Remember, I'm pulling these things out now because I feel it, that's why I have all these newspaper articles. I kept them. And what do we have going on? Listen to this. Skyway death plane was a B-47. All right, B-47 based at MacDill Air Force. Now this is May 3rd, it's 58. We're trying to get up in space, and here's what our B-47 fleet was in 2,000 B-47s protecting us. Listen to this. It says that it exploded. I'm going to ask you a question. How many times do planes explode?
Once.
Well, are we looking at a Soviet or some kind of interference? I'm going to read the rest of this. This plane, May 3rd, 1958, exploded on a regular training flight, flying low at 800 feet, and 4 men died. But wait. The investigation failed to show the cause of the crash. On the same day the MacDill crash occurred, another B-47 crashed while taking off from Pease Air Force Base, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, also killing 4. Earlier this year, on March, which is just not very far away, 4 were killed again at MacDill, crashing at Avon Park while at a test bombing run. And on December, just a few months, 6 months earlier, another MacDill B-47 exploded in midair over the Gulf of Mexico on a bombing run. 3 were killed. It is believed that more than 100 B-47s are stationed at MacDill. Now, if you have 4% of them crashing and exploding, what is going on? What kind of situation? If we had that today, there'd be a major investigation. They are killing our pilots, for heaven's sakes. The Air Force statement that they're gonna have modified tests, they're gonna make changes. It says B-47 has been involved in 14 crashes since the beginning of this year. All right? 14 with 34 casualties. It's front page news for Pete's sakes. And you don't hear about this. What kind of condition is our Air Force in? That we have from the this is the most important Air Force base at the time, okay? That we have 14 crashes in just since May. I mean, it's only May. And why aren't they doing something about it? What's going on? Here's a little hint, and I ask you what kind of information we're getting. Remember, we're supposed to be in a space race. It is now May 61, and we're looking at here, Cape labor woes, delayed space shot, man says. This is in May, okay, 61. Cape Canaveral said that strikes, work slowdowns, and wishy-washy decision-making have thrown the man in space and missile programs behind 6 months. I submit that it was behind 6 months because we were behind 6 months, but they have to have an excuse for it. I already told you, Soviets are they're putting, who was the first man in space? Raise your hand if you, speak out, who was the first?
Yuri Gagarin.
All right, it wasn't anybody from our country, and it wouldn't be for a long time. That's so sad, but the truth. The space race is heating up, folks, all right? And they're blaming everybody but themselves. So I'm gonna read some more of that.
I question it was only 6 months.
Huh?
I question the fact that they were only 6 months beyond.
Well, that's right. All right, so we have McNasty in charge of the Cape for Convair Astronautics. Wait a minute, Convair, and the General Dynamics, does that sound like the military? What does that sound like? That sounds like the military-industrial complex, doesn't it? You know how much money can be funneled in and out, and there can be wars, you want wars and all that, and you've got this going on. He spoke at a hearing, interrupted by applause, when Chairman John McClellan, Democrat of Arkansas, announced the apparent success of the first U.S. manned space test shot. The subcommittee is exploring labor troubles and waste in the entire missile program and whether new laws are needed to deal with these conditions. In nearly 2 weeks of hearings, the subcommittee has heard testimony that labor unions fomented strikes on flimsy excuses to throw the projects behind schedule. What they want is get the unions out and get all this stuff secret as the funding and everything else. You have to deal with that. And we wonder how much money was actually funneled into the space program and how much of it went elsewhere. All right. Not long after that, May 25, 1962, what we have, Carpenter gets up there in space, but when they get him down, they don't know where he is. Carpenter's saved. He was for 40 minutes, and he couldn't figure out where the man was when he landed back on Earth, okay? Now, these are the same people that some years later, 69, claimed that they could put, now I'm not saying they didn't go to the moon, I'm just saying, claimed that somehow they had the ability to have a craft on the moon, put in an unknown number of weight of rocks, because I wrote it all down. They don't know how much they weigh, they only have a certain amount of fuel. When you take that fuel off the ground, and we have, at that time they had the computer capacity of what you have in right now, in a little calculator today. Somehow, as this other thing is orbiting like this, and only a month earlier they had failed to have the two orbiting thing like that meet just around Earth, but this miracle is that while this is going around this way, this comes up, and without a flaw, it manages to dock with this that's going around with an unknown payload of rocks. Unfortunately, also when it was on the ground down here, it took them a while to figure out where to land, like 20. I've got it all down, I wrote it all down. They weren't sure where they're gonna land. But wait a minute, they don't know where they're gonna land. How are they gonna know how to calculate that this is going around? There are some big problems. The big answer is maybe they have a lot more calculation ability than we think, except that we have an incident where we know the computers failed altogether, and they had to come in by hand. What was it, Apollo 11? Yeah, Apollo 11, the computers failed, I mean, there are some real problems with secrecy and with what really happened that need to be looked at, not as conspiracy, but as just, we don't really know, and I really don't believe everything we've been told.
Can I add something?
Of course.
Right, is this on?
It's on.
The very last slide that I showed was my article stating Apollo 11. That's the real story, not quite, the official story is what you just heard from Judith, which she didn't know about. What Captain Sam Houston came in after 30 years and told me. It's in my article, it's online in the link and you can read it. What really happened was the computers didn't fail. Mission Control in Houston communicated with the return of the mothership and told Armstrong that the landing location had been changed. The original location was pre-programmed into the computer. That's where the Screaming Eagle 250-mile-an-hour vertical hurricane was in the originally programmed landing site. So he had to be given instructions as to how to manually change the location of the splashdown in the Pacific, and he did that by just slightly changing where the craft came into the atmosphere.
Yep. So there are all kinds of versions, and what I find a little disturbing is that as we get further and further from that time, we've learned that a bunch of files and a bunch of original films and all kinds of things that were accessible. I know because when I lived in Florida, you could access them, you could pull them out of the library, they're not there anymore. So why? All right, on Tuesday morning, October 23rd, 62, I say we have kind of deplorable condition. We are told that in the space race by 62, that Russia is way ahead. You look at what they did with Sputnik, right, and all this, and they're putting up all these big satellites, and they get to man in space before we do, that they have missiles far more than we do, and there's a big missile gap to worry about. And what is Kennedy doing? He says, we need to share our technology with Russia. By the way, Kennedy was living at their very formative time in his life overseas. His father's pro-Nazi, and that's where he got some of his ideas from. But he became a warrior for peace. You can read about James Douglas's JFK in The Unspeakable. This man turned from one who was inculcated almost to one war to one peace. And so he saw, he'd been in battle, he'd been harmed, he'd seen the horrible things that happened. He didn't want our people in any country, the people of the earth, to suffer. So here he's got a problem. They hated Kennedy for this, the military. Blockade of Cuba ordered. No, says, and then remember I told you that I knew about the General Curtis LeMay. I learned so much from my friend, okay, who had written in McKinley Cantor. McKinley Cantor kind of took me under his wing. I walked along the beach there in Sarasota with him when he was dictating on this guy, dictating the biography. You know, he's writing off the top of his head. He's dictating stuff that Curtis had told him. All right, and how much LeMay hated Kennedy. So his biography didn't get very far because that didn't fly very well. But you can still find it and dig it and print it. But I learned so much about him, Curtis LeMay, so I looked him up because, of course, I was interested because of what happened. And I know that Curtis LeMay is one of the players who was just really thrilled. And he was there when Air Force One landed. He disobeyed orders. He was not supposed to be there. But he was there to greet the coffin, and I'm sure he did it with a smile on his face. So this is Kennedy was up against, he's soft on communism. I have 1 minute left. Okay. Soft on communism. Well, I don't have that much more to do. But to tell you that anybody, what they were up to is saying, if this space race, okay, and again, I'm saving all these things because I'm getting involved in all this stuff in a different way, but it piqued my interest. This man is soft on communism, and if we go on, he is a traitor to the United States. One of the reasons the military, and we see him at Carswell Air Force Base, that's in Fort Worth. He gets off the plane, and you know they inspect the Air Force, they go and walk along there. And we have film showing them shaking hands with LBJ. And some of them are refusing to shake hands with the president. You can go and see it. It's kind of disturbing. I'll tell you what's more disturbing. They had that banquet, and where they said, Mrs. Kennedy, everybody Kennedy said of his wife, everybody's here for Jackie, not him, and she's, how pretty she looks and all that. Look at the pictures again. Everybody has a boutonniere. Who knows what a boutonniere is? Flower. All right. Well, believe it or not, the kids I was talking to once, they're so poorly educated today that they thought a boutonniere was some kind of gun or something.
That's buccaneer.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I said they had a boutonniere. There were only two people in the room who didn't have boutonnieres. Jackie Kennedy, president. And they get off the plane, right here in Dallas, Love Field. Johnson still has a boutonniere on, and others do too. Jackie gets red roses. The first person to get red roses, and we now know that Earl Cavill was CIA. That has come out in 2017. We now know that. He's the mayor of Dallas. His brother, Charles Cavill, deep in the space race, second command the CIA, and a general, military CIA, fired by Kennedy. Mrs. Cavill, that is Earl Cavill, nice little girl. She hands, he hands yellow roses first, what a snub, to the vice president's wife, Lady Bird. Then she goes to President Kennedy's wife, Jackie, and hands her red roses. It says, I'm sorry, they were out of yellow roses. They all went to the Trade Mart. If you believe that, casket of worms, you have a stronger stomach than I do. What are we looking at? We have, in 1958, oh wait a minute, where am I here? Yeah, sorry. We end up with the Vietnam War and everything like that. And what we finally have is what I call, it's called in the Los Angeles Times, Lucifer Rising. We want to get back to our roots, and we want to get back to reality, or you can listen to the fabricated stories, or you can ask for peace. We need to fight for peace. We need to get along and stop blaming the Russians or anybody else for our problems. And we need to learn to get along. Don't blame it. Look, election rigging or whatever's going on, it happens everywhere. Don't blame a whole country or a whole race or anybody. What our job is, like in this very room, what we had earlier, is to promote peace, unity, and knowledge. So you know what's going on. Space race, what do we have today?
U.S. Space Force.
What do we have now? What just happened?
August of 2019, announced as last year, we have the U.S. Space Force. It is a branch off the U.S. Air Force. The Air Force protects the area the planes can fly. The next level of defensive protection for our liberties is the Space Force, to be able to counteract direct energy weapons, laser weapons, and electronic magnetic pulses.
Anybody have that team?
Yeah.
And
The
for
problem-
yourself.
Oh, I'm Dr. Ward, I'm from
That's
Danesville, Florida.
what I can hear you.
Can't hear you.
I'm Dr. Ward, I'm from Danesville, Florida, where Judith went to school and I went to school. The problem with the Space Force is we have to get the lift rockets from Russia. We've paid them $4 billion to get to the space station, and we're going to keep on paying them because it's going to be several years before we get the ability to send people up.
It turned out during Kennedy's time that the huge missile gap between us and the Soviet Union was a lie. We so overwhelmed them, it was ridiculous. The space race itself, and when we talk about going to the moon, that's what Kennedy was trying to really, I see, unify us to work together to go to the moon. well, no, we can't have that, we've gotta get there first. And I'm telling you right now, we need to get there together. That's all I have to say.
Yay!
Ladies and gentlemen, Judith Mary Baker and Barbara Honaker. Can you enjoy that? There you go. Bravo, ladies. Bravo. All right. Thank you.
So you're gonna tell them about coming on?
Yes. So, yes, if you haven't filled out your letter to leave,